You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Oh yeah, baby, lovely.
Good morning, it's April the 4th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net. Good day, Glenn. How are you doing today?
Well, I was doing really good till I walked out the door and saw all the snow come down. But I heard you got that the other day, so I guess it's our turn now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, welcome back to Canada. Don't you miss Costa Rica?
Yeah, I really do. I love Canada, I really do, but I hate cold now.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I'm sure you find the same thing I do as you get older. Yeah.
Exactly. I need more heat.
More heat. Yes. Yeah. I know. Yesterday I started the fireplace.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I lit her up, got her going because.
And it'll open up all the windows cool. Because it gets too hot, right?
It got cool, got cool and damp, right? Because of the rain and the snow that we had yesterday. So I said, listen, I'm gonna light up the fire here.
Why not?
Like you said, you can always open the windows to let it out. So
I've done that many times when I had a fireplace.
Yeah, it's happened here already. Something about 84 degrees in the house just isn't good. So, all right, what do you say? We get on with the news. We're going to cover some stories. Let's see, right here in good old Canada, the U.S. We got some interesting news out of Alberta on some insurance coverage, and we got some news on some magic mushrooms as well. So let's get at her with our first story of the day. It comes to us from CBC, and the headline on it says, "Cannabis is emerging as a new battleground over Mi'kmaq rights."
It's no mistake that Thomas Dufree calls his cannabis and cultural art store in North End, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, a trunk house. A reference to trading posts outlined in the 1752 treaty signed between the Mi'kmaq chief and the British governor of Nova Scotia. It's that treaty that Dufree says will be central to his defense to charges laid following a police January raid on his Amu Leaf store, joining other cases where Mi'kmaq operators are claiming the rights to sell cannabis outside Nova Scotia regulations that restrict its retail to Crown Corporation.
Now, Dufree says that I believe as long as we're fighting, as long as we're using wisdom and education to move forward, then they don't really have a choice but to allow us to live in prosperity, peace, and friendship, and to the best of our advantages. And he goes on to say that they have to uphold that treaty. Well, Mi'kmaq treaty rights have long been asserted in the fisheries, most prominently in the Nova Scotia lobster industry, increasingly with lucrative baby eels. Cannabis is emerging as a contentious new legal and social battleground since its legalization in 2018.
But those claiming the right to sell cannabis face significant hurdles to prove it under the Supreme Court of Canada precedents that date back more than 2 decades, one of which has become the standard test in such cases. The question is set to come to a head this summer with a multi-day hearing scheduled in a case involving a banned councillor from a central Nova Scotia First Nation.
Chris Gugu, who was recently re-elected in Millbrook First Nation, is challenging 2 charges he faces under the Cannabis Act related to the December 2020 RCMP search of a dispensary he owns on reserves lands in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. In a legal filing in the case, federal prosecutor Michael Taylor outlined a series of elements he said the Supreme Court of Canada requires a defendant to prove in order to successfully claim a treaty or Aboriginal rights under Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution.
So the RCMP rated a dispensary on a reserve. A reserve is not considered part of Canada. I don't understand how they're allowed to even do that. That's very strange. The Peace and Friendship Treaty of 1752 outlined that said Indians shall have free liberty to bring to sale skins, feathers, fowl, fish, or any other thing they shall have to sell. But the Crown argues, citing the landmark 1999, because that's relevant compared to a 1752 treaty, Marshall decision that prove a treaty right, there must be evidence that the item is commonly or commodity, I don't know that word, was being traded at the time.
Commodity.
Commodity, okay. Or it was reasonably contemplated by the parties to the treaty. So they're saying if they didn't sell it in 1752, they shouldn't be selling it now.
That's what they're saying, correct.
Yeah. We didn't sell water in 1752 either.
No, that's something that's more recent. Now, in order to prove an Aboriginal right, according to the brief, a defendant must follow the test outlined in Supreme Court's 1996 Vanderbilt decision. This means they must show that the practice, custom, or tradition existed before European contact, that it was integral or to a community's way of life, and that the modern right has a reasonable degree of continuity with the practice of the past. In short, the case could come down to a crucial question. Did Mi'kmaq communities trade in cannabis historically? That's far from clear, they say.
Some historians have pointed to the French apothecary Louis Herbert as a person who first planted cannabis in the form of hemp used for clothing and rope in Nova Scotia in the early 1600s. But it also appears cannabis was growing wild in parts of Northern America when Europeans arrived, as noted by French explorer Jacques Cartier during his travels along the St. Lawrence River.
A 2022 brief filed in the Google case by his lawyer doesn't claim the Mi'kmaq were selling or using cannabis hundreds of years ago, but instead points to medical cannabis as a plant medicine. The Aboriginal approach is traditional healing and plant medicine, the brief said, and has been in existence among the Mi'kmaq people long before the first contact with Europeans.
The legal landscape may shift, however, in a recent Quebec decision concerning two men from Kanawake, south of Montreal, accused of dodging tobacco import taxes. The judge recast the test for claiming Aboriginal and treaty rights. The court also viewed economic development as a generic right that was shared by pretty well all Indigenous peoples, said Roger Townsend, a longtime lawyer practicing Aboriginal law.
In doing so, the judge rejected the standard pre-European contact test, which has been criticized for being difficult to meet and for freezing certain rights in time by ignoring their evolution, according to lawyer Laura Cornerio. She said the Quebec case is also significant because the judge relied on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which the federal government has agreed to implement under 2021 legislation.
The case has been appealed by the Quebec government, which has not yet been litigated in the province's highest court or in the Supreme Court of Canada, both of which could reject the findings of the judge. The Federal Cannabis Act delegated the regulation of the sale and distribution of cannabis to the provinces, and the federal government has been criticized for not consulting in a meaningful way with First Nations.
Now, in Nova Scotia, the provincial government decided cannabis can only be legally sold through the Crown Corporation, Nova Scotia Liquor Corp. There is currently only one NSLC store on a reserve in Nova Scotia, and that's at the Eskasona First Nations in Cape Breton.
I'm actually surprised there's even one.
Yeah, same here. Even so, numerous unauthorized dispensaries have popped up. Patrick Kaiser, who opened Treaty Nug's truck house on the Gold River Reserve in northwest Nova Scotia in January, is operating without approval of the Acadia First Nation, also known as the Wash. Yeah, I can't get that one out. First Nation.
I wanted you to try that one.
Oh, no.
He said he's prepared to be raided and charged by the RCMP, but maintains that he has treaty right to sell cannabis, which he views as far less harmful than alcohol and for medicinal value. If the government can sell cannabis, then we should be able to sell cannabis as well, he said in an interview. We were never brought to the table for discussions about anything to do with cannabis related to the government.
Arcadia Chief Deborah Robinson did not reply to interview requests, but a notice posted to the band's website in December said it has not authorized any cannabis stores and warned that those that do open without approval are illegal and will be closed down. The band also said it has the inherent right to self-govern over issues of health, safety, and welfare in its communities, including regulating cannabis, but it has cast doubt on whether there is a treaty right to sell cannabis.
The advice we have received is that the retail sale of cannabis would be difficult to protect as an Aboriginal right or as a treaty right, since retail sale of similar products in the 1700s would be difficult to prove, according to 2020 update of the Chief and Council. Yeah, they didn't sell anything back then. So Millbrook First Nation, which has a number of unauthorized dispensaries on its reserve, imposed a moratorium on new cannabis stores in 2021. That will remain in place until the community can adopt its own regulations.
A report summarizing consultations with Millbrook members 2 years ago noted that given cannabis is organic, some young people argued that they had the right to earn a moderate livelihood from its sale, a reference to the treaty rights that have been asserted in the fisheries. Elders, however, worried about the proliferation of dispensaries on the reserve and how it might normalize cannabis use among youth. They were also concerned about operators who were getting rich while others were not, creating a divide between haves and have-nots, the report said.
Chief Bob Galode told CBC News that the band's proposed cannabis control law is still in draft form that is being presented to the newly elected council. He declined to say whether he believes individual band members have a treaty right to sell cannabis. In February 2023 letter, Millbrook Executive Director Claire Marshall said band administrators have been active in the deterrence of new shops, and added that those erected before the moratorium are unlicensed and should still be rated by the RCMP. That's
their fee. The recently charged founder of Emuleaf, which is not on reserve land, was so open about his intentions to sell cannabis that he hand-delivered letters last May announcing his store to Halifax Regional Police and City Hall. He vows to keep pressing ahead in the courts. Patience is virtue, he said. I'm only 40 years old, and I'm in it for the long haul. So there you go.
Well, thank God he's 40. He's got some time on his hands still.
Got some time. And, you know, it's going to be an ongoing argument and fights and, you know, discussions.
There is
across,
a shop
across
open
the country
in Fredericton.
in some of these locations.
Oh, sorry. There is a shop open in Fredericton, right downtown Fredericton, not on native land. It's been open for months and months. As far as I know, it hasn't been raided yet. And they're claiming treaty rights.
A few weeks ago, I saw one right downtown Toronto, Iroquois Cannabis.
Yeah, so it's happening all over the place, and it is going to go to court, I guess, in the next couple of years. We'll find out.
We'll find out. All right, on to the next story. This comes from the Marijuana Moment. Headline says, federal judge could rule in lawsuit over the cops' rights to use cannabis off-duty in New Jersey. Oh.
A federal judge could decide. It's crazy that they can't.
Yeah.
A federal judge could decide soon whether to dismiss a lawsuit Jersey City filed against the state over claims that state officials are forcing the city to violate federal law by allowing police officers to use cannabis off-duty. The city's been fighting the state in federal court since the State Civil Service Commission ordered the city to reinstate two officers it had fired for using cannabis. Although the city lost in that venue, its attorneys note that the commission cited an obvious conflict between the state's legalization law, known as CREMA, and the federal law, which still considers cannabis a Schedule I substance. We always come up against that.
Oh, the screen is...
My
screen is bouncing. I think I know where... Attorneys representing the terminated officers want the lawsuit thrown out, but the city argues that the court should hear the case because it concerns more than just the officers it has terminated. A final ruling on the city's claims would guide how the city should handle this conflict between state and federal law moving forward, they said. James Shea, New Jersey City's police director, has argued he could be charged with federal crime if he allows officers who use recreational cannabis to also possess firearms. The Federal Gun Control Act of 1968 bars any person who is an unlawful user of any controlled substance from possessing a firearm.
There is no available state remedy in this respect. In the absence of this court deciding this case, Director Shea and Jersey City personnel were left wondering whether doing what CREMA says they can do will open them to federal criminal charges. City attorney said in March 18th legal filing. But a group of Jersey City officers who have been disciplined for using cannabis and the Jersey City Police Officers Benevolent Association maintain the city has no standing to sue because it does not provide its cops with their service weapons or ammunition, and because the city's officers do not need federal firearms permits. The officers' attorneys also say Jersey City Forum shopped by trying to get a federal judge to hear their case after the State Civil Service Commission heard the city's arguments on this issue and rejected them. You frozen? Plaintiffs were simply unhappy and only filed this matter in federal court matter because they lost its CREMA Act preemption argument in the state court forums. Attorneys for the discipline officers wrote in a motion filed last week. Shortly before the recreational cannabis industry launched in April of 2022, State Attorney General Matt Platkin, who's a Democrat, released guidance to law enforcement officials stating that state law doesn't allow them to fire cops who consume cannabis off duty.
Uh-oh, we're frozen.
You want me to keep going here?
Plaintiffs were unhappy, lost its agreement in this was before General Mike.
Don't know what happened here. I don't know if I'm off or he's off. Sorry, folks. The city filed its lawsuit against the state of New Jersey and Platkin, among others, in October 2023, arguing that knowingly violating a federal law barring cannabis users from possessing guns would be a felony and would put other officers and the public at risk. Such a conclusion in this case would mean that the state could also legalize other controlled substances such as heroin in disregard of federal law in the same manner as CREMA purports to do for cannabis. Then require police departments to employ individuals who regularly use both controlled substances, even where they must possess a firearm, city's attorneys wrote. Such BS. Who's good? Wow. I don't know if I'm still on the air here, folks. I've lost Al. And the rest of the
Al's back. Al's back.
Al's back.
Al's back. Sorry, buddy.
That's okay. I finished that story.
Did ya?
Yeah. So I'm just clicked on the next one, C3.
Okay, I'm just going to bring that up right now so that we can get started on that. Here we go. From StratCan, headline says, C3 announces new president, a former Canopy exec with extensive public service experience.
Paul McCarthy was announced as the new president of the National Canadian Cannabis Industry Association on April 2nd, following the former CEO and president, George Smitherman, stepping down in January. There is a great potential for the cannabis sector to flourish in Canada, said McCarthy. It can contribute to the country's productivity and provide good-paying, sustainable jobs. That, however, can only be achieved through a reformed regulatory regime and the eradication of the illicit market, said Paul McCarthy, president of the C3. I look forward to working collaboratively with government and other stakeholders to make this industry the success story it can be.
And if anybody thinks that the name Paul McCarthy sounds familiar, this is not the singer. Rick Savino, chair of the Cannabis Council of Canada and senior VP of Aurora Cannabis, expressed the board's enthusiasm about McCarthy's appointment. He says, "We are delighted to welcome Paul McCarthy as the new president of the Cannabis Council of Canada. His wealth of experience and proven track record in policy development and stakeholder engagement make him instrumental in driving C3's annual strategic plan. We are confident that under his leadership, C3 will continue to be a leading voice in advocating for a thriving and responsible cannabis industry."
McCarthy has received recognition for public service in managing the British Columbia component of the infrastructure stimulus program that saw a total investment of $1.2 billion to complete 450 projects over a 2-year period. In addition, during his time with Veterans Affairs, he led the redesign and enhancement of financial benefits for Canadian Armed Forces veterans, culminating in Pension for Life, which provided greater financial security for many veteran families. McCarthy spent the last 3 years at Canopy, which most recently as head of corporate policy, as well as previous roles as head of international implementation and as a strategic advisor to the then president and CEO, Brian Litton. He has held several high-level roles with various federal ministries.
C3 has served as the main national industry association for Canada's cannabis industry since it was medical only, but has struggled to maintain membership in recent years as the industry struggles to survive in a highly regulated and taxed market. So there you go. Got a new person at the helm. Yeah, like I said, the name sounds familiar, but it's not the same person.
Not for cannabis, though.
No, it doesn't. No, just the people who are used to hearing the name. And, I read the article beforehand, most of it. And, I read the name Paul McCarthy, but it didn't click on me at that time that, hey, the Beatles. And then when you were reading it, oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same, but it's damn close. And with the Paul at the beginning of it, right? It sounds like you're saying his name.
Yeah. All righty, here we go. Our last story before we go to break, and this one comes to us from the Dales report. And the headline says Alberta Pioneers Insurance Coverage for Psychedelic-Assisted Therapy.
The TDR 3 takeaways for insurance coverage of psychedelic therapy. Number 1. Alberta Blue Cross initiates insurance coverage for psychedelic-assisted therapy, paving the way for broader access. Number 2, PsyCan highlights the cost-effectiveness and therapeutic potential of psychedelics, advocating for wider insurance coverage. And number 3, global optimism grows as research and economic models predict insurance coverage for psychedelics could revolutionize mental health care.
This week's endorsement by Alberta Blue Cross to cover psychedelic-assisted therapy marks a significant shift in the healthcare insurance view of psychedelics in the role of mental health treatment. This move not only makes Alberta the first Canadian province to regulate and embrace insurance coverage for psychedelics, but also sets a precedent for the integration of these treatments into mainstream healthcare. Psychedelic-assisted therapy involving compounds like psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, and DMT have shown promising results in treating severe mental health disorders, offering new hope for patients where traditional therapies have failed. PsyCan, the not-for-profit trade association for the legal Canadian psychedelic medicine industry, plays a crucial role in this transition by advocating for the expansion of insurance coverage for psychedelic-assisted therapy. PsyCan aims to enhance access to these treatments across Canada. The association efforts are backed by robust scientific research and economic modeling demonstrating the safety, efficacy, and cost-effectiveness of psychedelic therapies compared to conventional treatments.
Alberta Blue Cross's decision to cover psychedelic-assisted therapy reflects a growing recognition of the mental health crisis, particularly among first responders and healthcare practitioners. The COVID-19 pandemic has further exacerbated these challenges, making the need for effective and accessible treatments more critical than ever. Psychedelic therapies, with their potential to provide significant relief and recovery for mental health conditions, presented a valuable addition to the therapeutic arsenal. However, the integration of psychedelics into insurance coverage is not without its challenges. Regulatory hurdles, the need for extensive research, and the establishment of cost-effective treatment models are key considerations. Despite these obstacles, the positive outcome of critical trials and the economic benefits projected for insurers suggests a promising future for psychedelic-assisted therapy coverage. Good.
The interest in psychedelic-assisted therapy is not limited to Canada. The Horizons Perspectives on Psychedelics conference in New York highlighted a global shift towards recognizing the value of psychedelic treatments. The optimism surrounding the potential for insurance coverage reflects a broader trend of reevaluating the role of psychedelics in mental health care. With entities like MAPS leading the charge in research and advocacy, the path towards widespread acceptance and coverage of psychedelic therapies appears increasingly viable. As the legal and healthcare framework for psychedelic continues to evolve, the potential for these treatments to become widely available and accessible grows. The move by the Alberta Blue Cross, supported by PsyCan's advocacy, could herald a new era of mental health treatment where insurance coverage for psychedelic therapy becomes the norm, offering hope and healing to those in need. Want to keep up to date? They said to check out their website and go from there. So this, to me, is very excellent, good news, knowing that patients that are dealing with, looking at using psychedelic therapy to deal with their problems, their health issues, then...
Did you think it would come this far in 10 years? 10 years ago
No.
when you were thinking of this? I thought this was going to be decades away.
Tell me where there's a province where there's an insurance company and all that, just has it on there for their cannabis end. It's usually a big fight and argument, or it's very small. So it's good to see that the insurance company is offering this type of insurance.
After a lot of research into it, and it looks like they're paying attention to the research.
Yeah, it does, which is good. All right, it's break time. Time for us to go. But before I do that, Glenn, I have a question for you. When it comes to the global marijuana march, which is happening on May the 4th, why would you march? If I said to you, I march for, what would you say? I march for blank.
I always, my thing is I march for rights. I march for people to have the right to use the therapies that they want to use. And we read stories pretty well weekly. I read stories basically about freedoms that are coming but are not quite there. I know we have a lot more freedoms in Canada than a lot of other places, but there's stuff we just read today, Mi'kmaq rights, things like that. It's about giving people what they need and letting them have their own decisions.
All right, that's a question. It's a question that the Global Marijuana March out of Toronto is asking.
And what's the response? What's the most responses they get?
Well, we've just started discussing this, and actually last night I brought it up during the Pace Radio show, And Tamara had a pretty long answer on why she marches, and it was good. So I thought, hey, I'm just going to ask you. I march for. Some people might say I march for change. Some people might say I march for cannabis law reform. So
I think change and law reform are the same thing. I think patient access is a huge thing to access it at a reasonable price. You are dealing with the government like a liquor store. That's what they treat it like, right? And it's not the same thing.
No. All righty. Time for us to go to break. And talking about the Global Marijuana March, here we go.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back from our medication session, and I'm catching my lung back. Alrighty, we got four more stories. I'm gonna also mention that we got a comment. Unfortunately, I can't show it because it didn't show up here. I saw it somewhere else during the break, and that had to do with the Mi'kmaq story, the very first story that we went through. Debbie says that from her knowledge, there's about 11 the stores on the receipt.
11 of them.
11 of them, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
All right. Yeah, I would just read it very quickly, and as I was dealing with other stuff, but I saw that there was a comment, so that's what she says. All righty, here we go. On to the next story of the day. Comes to us from Entrepreneur, and the headline says, "Report: Total delinquent payments in cannabis industry have reached $3.8 billion."
Wow.
Now, this is a U.S. situation, and we've got problems here in Canada when it comes to delinquent end of accounts for the cannabis industry. So, yeah, go ahead.
U.S. medical and adult use cannabis companies have tallied $3.8 billion in delinquent payments and total late payments, on track to reach $4.2 billion in 2024, according to a survey data and analysis from the Whitney Economics 2023 U.S. Cannabis Delinquent Payments Report. Wow. The report found that the delinquent payments issue is universal to the cannabis industry, but tends to hit cultivators harder than retailers. The delinquent payments also have a greater impact on smaller and minority operators. Additionally, 44% of respondents said that late payments by cannabis companies had impacted their ability to pay their own debts, while 34% said it had affected their ability to make tax payments.
Survey respondents were given the opportunity to provide written input. "I would love to pay my bills if others would simply pay me first so I could do so," said one respondent who had delinquent payments. "The pressures created by current macroeconomic factors and regulatory policies have incentivized operators to stop paying their suppliers," according to Bo Whitney of Whitney Economics.
How do they get any supply if they don't pay? More than half of survey respondents, 57.3%, said that the delinquent payments have a greater impact on their businesses than Section 280E of the Internal Revenue Code.
Yeah, I see there in the quote, Whitney says in the statement that this data further affirms the fact that the cannabis industry is struggling. Unless there is some form of federal and state regulatory intervention, the issues associated with the lack of payments will only get worse. Well, I can't see the federal government coming to their help because, in their end of things, to them, federally, it's illegal.
But they did advance a bill for banking, which I don't know if it's passed yet, but there is a banking bill so that they can actually use banks. Imagine that, So
I haven't seen them pass any banking act yet because they've been working on this. They went from the Safe Banking Act to the Safer Banking Act, right?
Yeah.
Because it just
now it's the Super Safe Banking Act.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. All right, on to our next story. And this one comes to us from Psych Post. It says, "Magic mushrooms, a new frontier in diabetes treatment."
Interesting. Scientists have started to investigate whether a compound found in magic mushrooms, psilocybin, could play a role in combating the effects of diabetes. According to their preliminary research published in the journal Genes, psilocybin might help prevent the loss of critical insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. Wow. Psilocybin is a naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in certain species of mushrooms. In recent years, its therapeutic potential has begun to be recognized, particularly for mental health conditions. The rationale for this study, however, stems from psilocybin's interaction with serotonin receptors in the brain, which are also present in the pancreas. These receptors play a crucial role in regulating insulin production and release, a process that is often disrupted in diabetes. This could be huge.
Sure could be.
Wow.
Diabetes, chronic metabolic disorder characterized by high blood sugar levels, which over time can lead to serious health complications. The global presence of diabetes is rising at an alarming rate, with estimates suggesting that 783 million people could be affected by 2045. Type 2 diabetes, the most common form of the disease, is closely linked to obesity and sedentary lifestyle.
Sedentary.
Yeah. Igor Kovalchuk says Diabetes and Metabolic Syndrome Plague Society, and we're looking for various ways to contribute to the fight against these conditions. Oh, don't move on me, screen, please. Since microdosing with mushrooms could become one of the treatment options for various diseases, we wanted to test whether its active ingredient psilocybin would also have anti-diabetic effects. And he's with the University of Lethbridge.
Central to the development of diabetes is the dysfunction of pancreatic B cells, the cells responsible for producing insulin. When these cells are damaged or lost, the body's ability to regulate blood sugar levels is compromised. In the new study, the researchers investigated the effects of psilocybin on pancreatic B cells exposed to high glucose and high lipid conditions, a scenario that mimics the metabolic stress observed in diabetes. They used a rat insulomina cell line, a model known for its relevance in human B cell function, to conduct their experiments.
Cultured in nutrient-rich medium, the cells were treated with specific concentration of psilocybin, chosen based on preliminary results that suggested its optimal efficacy. Following psilocybin treatment, the cells were exposed to high glucose and high lipid conditions designed to induce the stress and damage typically observed in the pancreas B cells of individuals with diabetes. The researchers found that cells treated with psilocybin demonstrated markedly better viability compared to those not receiving treatment. This result suggests that psilocybin has a protective effect on B cells, helping to mitigate the detrimental impact of the metabolic stress associated with diabetes.
Further analysis provided insight into the mechanisms behind psilocybin's protective effects. The Western blot analysis, the study found that psilocybin treatment led to a decrease in the levels of several key apoptotic biomarkers in B cells, challenging the high glucose and lipid levels. Apoptosis or programmed cell death plays a significant role in the loss of B cells. In diabetes, the ability of psilocybin to reduce markers associated with this process indicates its potential to preserve B cell mass in diabetic conditions. We did not expect psilocybin to work so well in pancreas cells, Kovalchuk remarked.
Nice. Psilocybin also appeared to impact the expression of genes related to B cell dedifferentiation, which refers to the process by which mature insulin-producing B cells revert to a more primitive state and lose their ability to produce insulin effectively. The findings provide preliminary evidence that microdosing with magic mushrooms will likely have positive effect for people with metabolic syndrome, with prediabetes and diabetes.
Okay, increasingly, despite these positive effects on cell survival and dedifferentiation, the researchers observed that psilocybin did not significantly improve impaired glucose-stimulated insulin secretion, which is GSIS. Under high glucose and lipid conditions, this finding indicates that while psilocybin can protect B cells from death and dedifferentiation, it may not directly enhance their functional response to glucose in the context of metabolic syndrome or diabetes. The study, while pioneering its exploration of psilocybin's potential therapeutic effects on pancreatic B cells, in the context of diabetes, includes several limitations that pave the way for future research directions. Firstly, the research was conducted using a fat insulomia cell line, which, although valuable for initial investigations, does not fully replicate the complex physiological and metabolic interactions occurring in living organisms.
We need to perform this study on animals to be sure it works as well as it does in vitro, the doctor says. In addition, the study focused on the effects of psilocybin under specific conditions of high glucose and lipid-induced stress, representing only, come on screen, oh, now I lost where I was.
Only one aspect of diabetes, pathology diabetes, is a multifactorial disease with a wide range of pathophysiological features, including insulin resistance, inflammation, and autoimmune components in the case of type 1 diabetes. Did you get it
Ultimately,
back?
the researchers this is fun. Ultimately, the researchers hope to examine whether psilocybin can be a benefit to human diabetes patients. We're also looking for more traditional, natural, and holistic ways to treat diseases.
That's
lots of ads in there.
I've never heard of anything.
Sure
like
is.
That. And it seems like it's almost like a protectant. You know, you could take it before you reach that stage of diabetes, and it would maybe help you, or at least hold that off for a long time. You know, it's cool. I like that.
Yeah, preventative medicine.
Preventative. Yeah.
All righty. Here we go. Next story. Headline from Reuters, however you want to pronounce it. Pot producers climb as recreational cannabis to go on Florida's ballot.
April 2nd, U.S. listed shares of pot producers rise pre-market on Tuesday after the Florida Supreme Court on Monday allowed voters to decide on the fate of recreational use of cannabis in the state through the referendum on the November ballot. Imagine that. They allowed the voters to choose. If passed, adult use cannabis, that doesn't happen too often, does it? Voters aren't allowed to choose. If passed, adult use cannabis would be legal in the country.
There was...
Sorry, we're having a lag or something here.
Yeah. Florida can become the next top prize for regulated cannabis operators. It has a population of more than 22 million, and is also an important medical cannabis market. It could add to the Biden administration's efforts to push cannabis reform, such as seeking to ease the treatment of the psychoactive plant under federal law and pardoning thousands of convictions for mere possession of cannabis.
U.S. Health Agency last year also proposed to reclassify cannabis as a lower risk substance, boosting expectations of legalization at the federal level. U.S. listed shares of pot firms, there's a whole bunch of them listed here. They climbed between 1 and 6.8% before the bell. Adult use cannabis is legal in 24 U.S. states and also in the District of Columbia, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands.
There you go. I shut it down. It was just taking over my screen.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything. You actually froze. You were frozen again. I was waiting for me to drop out of the scene again. So, but did you finish it off?
I finished off a whole bunch of it.
Okay. All righty.
Halfway down.
All right.
They weren't going to tell us anything new after that. So.
No. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. On to the last.
The courts ordered them to put it on the ballot. That's what happened. They didn't want to, of course.
Yeah, the courts forced them to put it on there, and as we know, the governors have veto power.
And but I still think it means a lot, even if the Mr. DeSantis says "F you" after they vote. But if 70% of the people say we want this, eventually it will come.
Yeah.
You know? So I like that representation. At least we get to see 70% said yes, or 60, whatever it is. We get to see what the voters want.
Yeah, and the next election would be interesting in the state, because that would probably be a hot topic if 70% of the people want it.
And a whole bunch of more things they're doing down there too.
Yeah,
it's Florida.
We're not going there. We haven't got enough time for that. All right, let's get on to our last story of the day. The headline from MJ Biz Daily says that Canadian producer Heritage Cannabis granted creditor protection.
Heritage Cannabis is the latest Canadian cannabis producer to obtain an order for creditor protection as a wave of insolvencies continues to sweep across the nation's adult use market. Heritage sought and obtained the order for creditor protection from the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. The company announced on Wednesday in a news release.
They say, according to the release, they say the difficult but necessary decision to commence proceedings was made after careful consideration of the company's financial position, while evaluating all available alternatives and engaging in significant consultation with legal and financial advisors. The initial order, pursuant to the Company's Creditors Agreement Act, CCAA, includes a stay of proceedings in favor of Heritage and its Canadian subsidiaries and the appointment of a KPMG as monitor.
The initial order also extends the stay of proceedings to certain unidentified U.S. affiliates of the company that are not applicants. It's unclear how much debt Heritage is carrying in total.
Heritage says the company's senior secured lender, BJK Holdings, on April the 1st demanded the repayment of the debts worth approximately $8.4 million Canadian owed by Heritage Group. In the release, Heritage said its board of directors and management will remain in place under the general oversight of the monitor.
The company intends to seek approval and sale and investment solicitation process, which, if approved, would allow interested parties to participate in the process. Heritage anticipates that the Canadian Securities Exchange, where its shares were traded as CAN, will place the company under delisting review.
In March, Canadian cannabis firm Bazam, which emerged from the Green Organic Dutchman in 2022, was granted creditor protection. And there's been others as well. Tree Corp, a cannabis accessory distributor, Humble and Fume, grower and processor, Safari Flower Group. And I'm sure there's probably others as well out there.
I like that name, Bazam. Never heard that one before.
No. All righty, Glenn. There's our stories for the day. We've got them all done, all wrapped up. I guess with snow, you're not going anywhere on the bike today?
No, I did manage to move it from one side of the shop to the other yesterday.
Hey.
You know what?
You're going to do that this afternoon too, aren't you?
You know what I did? I have it hooked up to a battery, like a tender that keeps the battery charged all winter, right? I unhooked it all. I went to start it and it was dead. So I took it all apart. You got to take the seat off and the computer out, and I hooked up the battery charger. And then I realized I never turned the key on.
Oh, jeez. Well, all right. Anything you want to say before I close things up?
Nope. Peace, everyone. Stay warm.
Exactly. That's it from the Legacy420.com news desk. That's our news report for today. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and Legacy420.com. And in closing, we'd like to say thanks everybody for watching and tuning in the program. And don't forget, educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.